There we go. We are live. Fantastic. Let me just do the camera here. There we go. There we go. We look good. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Geelong Zone. I am your host, Coach Lucas. In today's video, we're going to review almost a player review of two legendary careers. One from the Geelong Football Club in Bill Brownless, or Billy Brownless, however you want to pronounce that. And Stewart Loewe from the St Kilda Football Club. Beautiful day in Adelaide, around about 44 degrees Celsius. So yeah, it's been a little bit warm, but it's all right. I don't want to have a 15-20 minute show. I want to try to get this done in 10 minutes if possible. But every time I say that, that never happens anyway. But let's get started. We're going to start with Billy Brownless. I have some notes here. Billy Brownless played 198 games with over 441 goals for the Cats. That's a very good conversion rate from goals to games. He's a one-club player. He didn't play anywhere else, though there were offers later in his career. He had an 11-year career. Bill, or Billy, was a one-time All-Australian in 91, two-time club leading goal kicker at 91-92, which is impressive, actually, considering you have Gary Ablett. Best years coming in 91-92. In 1991, he averaged 4 goals a game, 7 marks, kicking 81 goals. Very, very good year. For the record, Tony Lockett won the Coleman with 118 in the same season. 1992, he backed it up again. So his best years, statistically, his best years were in 91-92. Yeah, we all remember the winning goal against Footscray. We all get that, but I'm just talking about statistically his best years, and they were in 91-92. 92, he backed up his best season with 79 goals. So 81 goals in 91, he backed that up, kicking 79 goals in 92. He averaged 3 goals a game and 6 marks. And again, for the record, the Chief, Jason Dunstall, kicked only 139 goals in that season. Only 139 goals that season. Absolute crazy. Bill, or Billy, played in 4 grand finals. But as Cats fans, we know how all those 4 grand finals went, didn't we? Did okay in those 4 games. He kicked a total of 12 goals in 4 games. That's pretty good. Pretty good. Considering some of the opponents he had to play with, Silvani, Djakovic. So that's pretty good. Yeah, he lost all 4 grand finals. Hawks in 89. West Coast Eagles in 92-94. Incidentally, we're up by 20 points in that 92 grand final. West Coast kicked 10 goals after half-time. West Coast kicked more than 10 goals in the 94 grand final. They kicked 12 goals after half-time. Interesting. A lot of speculation around those players at the time. With drugs and whatnot. We've had horror stories with deaths, with drug-related, Chris Manreri. So, yeah, 22 goals after halftime in those combining grand finals. Interesting. Carlton 95 or whenever in that against Carlton, let's be honest, that was over at halftime. He retired in 1997, and before, Chris Manreri, I'm just, no disrespect. Just putting that out there. He retired in 1997, where the Geelong Football Club told him his services were no longer needed. He did not go anywhere else. He retired at the Cats. So Billy Brownless had to, he had one of the greatest forward of all time in Gary Ablett Sr. along with him. So he was always going to be the number 2 player. For a little bit when Gary retired, he became the number 1, but he was statistically nowhere near as good as his later years. And Father Time did catch up with him. Hence why Geelong told him in 97, go look somewhere else. But excellent conversion rate, excellent goals to games conversion rate. Got us into a grand final off his own boot against Footscray. Magnificent player of 11 years. We're going to move to Stewart Loewe. Stewart Loewe had a legendary 16-year career, which is unbelievable, from 1986 to 2002. So him and Billy started around the same time, but Loewe went on a little bit further on. Loewe managed to play 300 games. Billy sadly was 2 away from 200. But yeah, 16-year career. Was the St Kilda captain in 1997 during their grand final appearance with Ronnie Burke. He's a 2-time All-Australian in 1991, 1992. He won their best and fairest in 1990. That is pretty good, especially with that stacked team. 2 times leading goal kicker in 95 and 96. Club goal kicker, not AFL Coleman, just the club. 1991, his All-Australian year. 43 goals, average 1.9 goals a game. You might think, well, that's not really All-Australian, is it? But he averaged 17 disposals a game with 9 marks. So he was what you'd call a Nick Riewoldt type. He was Nick Riewoldt before Nick Riewoldt. So he'd push on the wing. It also helped when you had Tony Lockett also in your team. So he pushed up the field more as that linchpin, like a Matthew Richardson, a Jeremy Cameron today. So he was mainly a high forward winger, and he was he was probably an underrated contested mark. He can take marks, Stewart Loewe. That was probably one of his biggest strengths. So that was a well-deserved All-Australian, in my opinion. A bit different to Billy, even though Ablett controlled that forward line, Billy didn't really press up much. He didn't have attributes like Loewe did outside the 450. Like I said, Loewe was Nick Riewoldt type before Nick Riewoldt and before Matthew Richardson played in the wing, Jeremy Cameron. So that was that. Statistically, Stewart Loewe's best season for me, goal-wise, was 1996. 90 goals, that's incredible. 4 goals a game with 9 marks and 15 touches. So Tony Lockett was gone, went to Sydney. 90 goals is a fair effort. That year he did not make All-Australian, which is very strange. 90 goals, 15 touches. I had to actually look that up. But yeah, he's dealing with James Hird, Michael Voss, Wayne Carey, Tony Lockett himself. The bench back then, the All-Australian team only had three players on the bench. One of them was Gary Hocking. Maybe you could have put Loewe over Hocking that year. Maybe I haven't seen Hocking's stats per se. That'll be probably another video. Or Whiskers, if you know him as that, Whiskers. Another one that caught my eye was Darren Jarman and Matthew White from West Coast Eagles. And Darren Jarman, was the Crows player. Darren Jarman did amazing final series, one of the best final series you ever see in '97. With Malcolm Blight pushing him up forward when Tony Modra went down, got injured. But that's harsh. I think that's harsh. Maybe he should have gotten All-Australian that year, in my opinion. Footy Burner says, hello, mate. Hello, Jezza. Thank you for joining. But yeah, that's unlucky not to get All-Australian. Played in one grand final. Did he win that grand final? Well, we're about to find out. 1997, he played in that grand final. He kicked 2 goals that game. Unfortunately, it was in a losing effort, so the Crows are up by half-time, by the way, in that game. From memory, they actually bet North Melbourne in the prelim. From memory, I could be wrong. Someone might need to correct me on that. In my opinion, Stewart Loewe was a superstar, but Billy was just a star. Yeah, I agree with that. I think Stewart Loewe, like Billy's conversion rate to goals to games is probably better than Stewart Loewe's, but Stewart Loewe played that winging type role. And then when Tony Lockett went to Sydney, Stewart Loewe came back. Still did that. Like I said, he kicked 90 goals in 96. But Billy is a bloody legend here. Billy is a bloody legend by far. So yeah. So he played in that one grand final. They bet North Melbourne in that prelim. North Melbourne probably should have won another flag. Dominated the late 90s North Melbourne. But yeah, Stewart Loewe there, he kicked 2 goals in that grand final. That was a stacked team, by the way. That grand final was really stacked with St Kilda. You know, Ronnie Burke, as I mentioned. Ronnie Burke made All-Australian in 96, along with Robert Harvey. Also, so yeah, they could have had 3 St Kilda players in that All-Australian team in 96. But Stewart Loewe and Ronnie Burke, if you don't know who Ronnie Burke is, notorious player that always wear the helmet. Bit disrespectful if you only know him by that, because he was such a great player, Ronnie Burke. They had Robert Harvey, they had Nigel Lappin, had Barry Hall before he went to Sydney. They were absolutely stacked, that St Kilda team. And they were up at half-time. So, yeah, that was a bit of a missed opportunity there. But I've got a question. Burke was an absolutely. No, I think his record speaks for itself. So that team in 97 was stacked. And they couldn't get the job done against the Malcolm Blight coached Adelaide Crows, who had a good team themselves, but Jarman had 6 goals in that grand final, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, but fair enough. I said I only wanted this show to go 10 minutes. We are 11 minutes in, so that just tells you, doesn't it? I never get to end shows under 10 minutes. That team, when I first started footy as a kid, 1996, yeah. That was also North Melbourne's era as well. So 80s was Hawthorn, and then they win a flag early 90s. And then it was West Coast turn, and then Carlton in the mid. And then it was just after the mid-90s, it was just North Melbourne. They should have won more flags. They should have won more flags. They should have definitely won in 98. Another game that they were leading after the half-time. They just completely blew that. They just shot themselves in the foot with their goal kicking. So they should have won that. But, yeah, St Kilda, they did beat them in that prelim. So they should have won that grand final. They should have won that. They probably would have been favourites of the bookies. I came late. So like, oh, it's all good, mate. No, it's all good. It's all good. It's all good. I only wanted a 10-minute show because I want to go through these as quick as I can. I've gone away from the would you trade them, because it's hard to do that because they, if players came later than their careers, you just can't compare them. So I think this is a little bit more appropriate to name these kind of videos. Love and rate these comparisons though, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, they've unachieved a lot. Yeah, well, it's actually on Stewart Loewe. It's actually funny, Stewart Loewe became their number one, and then Fraser Garrett came by in the early 2000s. And when Stewart Loewe retired, he retired in 2002. Nick Revolt played that role. And then Nick Revolt took over. So it's kind of like a full circle, isn't it? Stewart Loewe, number 2. Tony Lockett leaves. Stewart Loewe becomes the number 2. Revolt comes in, becomes the number 2, because Fraser Garrick, with all due respect, he's a great forward. Fraser Garrick won Coleman medals as well. But at that time, Revolt was still number 2. The G Train retires and Revolt is his own team. So that was almost like a full circle moment there. Selwood versus Hodge next. Yeah, I could do that. Yeah, absolutely. Different players though. Different players. Selwood was midfield his entire career, and Hodge did play some midfield, but mainly halfback. So that's hard. So I'll probably, if I did do a Selwood Hodge video, it'd be like this one. It wouldn't be would you trade Selwood for Hodge. It would just be like this video. And I think this video here, putting it this way, like the title, Legendary Face-Offs, I think that's more appropriate. So I think I'll go, if I do the Selwood Hodge comparison, I'll just say Legendary Face-Offs. So I'll go away from the would you trade stuff. So yeah, Factual Opinion can definitely do that. Robert Harvey was the best St Kilda player. Robert Harvey was impossible to tag because he's bigger. He had a lot of good strength, but his biggest strength was fitness. My God, he would he would be an absolute nightmare. I remember Mark Bickley did an interview on radio on 5AA saying what was it like tagging Robert Harvey in that grand final. And Mark Bickley said a nightmare. He would just burn you to the ground, just outrun you. You know, sometimes he'd run and the ball was not even in that direction. It's just these two-way running would just destroy opponents. That's what made Robert Harvey such a gun. Legendary face-offs. His tank was, the best at that time. Robert Harvey with his engine, just no one was even close. He just by mental capacity, physical capacity alone, you'd be distraught. So a legendary career, also Robert Harvey, that never got his premiership, sadly. Still might be a coach one day. He's been around. Could coach a team. Could finally get that medal. Buckley came close against West Coast, and so never know. You never know. Hard, yes. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Hard as nails, Robert Harvey. Typical 90s player. Just a hard nut. It's sad to put. It would be sad to put Robert Harvey in this era because he'd get suspended every week, the way he did play. Because not that he was dirty, but because he was so hard. You know, he didn't care. A lot of 90s players, if you put them in today's game, would probably get suspended because the rules have changed so much, haven't they? Just an old-fashioned footballer, absolutely. But that is it for the show. 10 minutes I wanted. I got 16. Never works out like that, does it? Never works out like that. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. This has been the Geelong Zone, and we might do that Luke Hodge, Joel Selwood face-off sometime down the track. I actually really like doing these. So factual opinion, good one. So yeah, I might do that one next. Joel Selwood and Luke Hodge. So anyway, thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for watching, and goodbye for now.